Hi, and welcome to this video where today I'm going to be looking at the transition from a Onewheel XR to my first ever EUC, which is the Veteran Sherman. Okay, so the Onewheel XR, I've got over 1,000 miles on this now. I think it's around 1,063. And the main thing about the Onewheel XR is that it is obviously like a board, so it's a bit like skateboarding, or I'd probably put it more closer to snowboarding when you're actually using this, in terms of the same type of balance for it as well. It has a range of kind of 12 to 18 miles, which works pretty well for my commute to work, although it does mean that I have to take my charger to work as well, and charge it before then returning home. And that's one of the reasons why I've now looked at purchasing the EUC, just for the extended range and also for the kind of ride comfort as well for long distances. Now with my Onewheel XR, the only thing I've added to it over time is some guardrails, put a fender on top of it as well, just to protect against kind of water and debris firing up here. Makes it a bit better when you're commuting to work and you actually arrive dry between the legs. That's nice. And everything else is pretty much standard other than the tyre. So the stock Vega tyre, after 1,000 miles, it was starting to wear slightly. I think I had ridden on it slightly underinflated for a little bit when I first got it, which wore it out a bit too prematurely. It's a treaded tyre, so it works really well on trails. Still also pretty good on roads as well. It's not really diminished the range at all, and it makes the carving so much better because the profile of the tyre is not quite as flat as the Vega. So moving on to this is my very first EUC. This is the Veteran Sherman. Turn these lights off. And there's been a lot of talk online about whether or not this is the correct wheel for a beginner, and pretty much the consensus is that the answer is no, and I would probably agree, not having tried any others. I can see why it wouldn't be a particularly brilliant beginner wheel, but I also knew that when I got one that I would definitely want kind of something that had a decent top speed and a really good range as well, just to separate it from the Onewheel XR. So I knew that if I went for one of the lower spec ones as a good beginner one, I would probably always end up buying a second one. So rather than doing that, I would just suck it up and learn on potentially one of the less friendly wheels for beginners to begin with. So in the clip here, you're seeing me just kind of starting out practicing, getting a feel for the machine, feel for the balance, using the wall and the car to give myself a bit of a hand there, just rolling up and down the drive, getting a feel for kind of how the balance works, how the self-balancing works, and where you have to put your centre of gravity when you're kind of moving forward or backwards. Now a couple of hours later, I've been using the machine for probably 5 or 6 hours, a bit easier to set off, get a lot more confident with practice. So one thing I noticed straight away is what separates the Sherman from the Onewheel is just its ability to eat up the ground, like eat up the terrain. The larger wheel, it really just allows you to kind of at pace go over a lot of uneven ground, cover over bumps and puddles and all sorts, without even really noticing them most of the time. Now the Onewheel I can take on lots of different ground like this. Usually I use a bit more finesse when you're going over the bumps, having to kind of micro adjust a lot of the times to avoid the bigger potholes and such. But with the Veteran, notice you just kind of fly along. as long as you're careful where you're placing it, not going on kind of muddy, slippy ground, which would probably make me fall off the one wheel just as it would on this. I find it very easy just to travel on. The weight of the machine really lends itself to the stability. I think one of the things I've noticed is the stability kind of at slow speeds. I spent a lot of time on the one wheel, so I've really got that down to kind of an art of just moving around, micro adjusting as you're going around. One thing I'm practicing with the Sherman at the moment is traveling and turning at slow speed. So in this clip here you see me kind of just practicing weaving in and out left and right, and that's like a slow speed, and the weight of the machine obviously kind of negatively impacts that, having to kind of micro adjust and constantly balance again. Whereas in this clip, as you're setting off down this dirt track here, you're kind of picking up speed, and you can really feel the benefit of the weight at that point. It's so much more stable going at a fast pace. How do I compare this then to one wheel? If I'm thinking of like a summary for the two of them at the moment. One wheel I find a bit more fun currently, probably because I'm still getting more confident, practicing a bit more on the Veteran. One wheel I find that I can obviously kind of play around a bit more with Carl, kind of in and out of lanes, down little hills and such. The Veteran, I feel just like I'm flying along. Kind of a different experience in a way. You can go at such a pace down bumpy gravel or bumpy ground like this, you just feel like you're flying. Speaking of speed, obviously the Veteran has such high top speed, I've not managed to push it that far yet. This clip here shows me going about 27 miles an hour, and honestly I feel like I'm going at an absolute rocket at that pace. Maybe because I'm used to travelling on the one wheel at more like 16, 17 miles an hour and cruising. Cruising speed probably for the Veteran at the moment, I'd say my average is probably around 20 to 22 miles an hour. So I've just travelled my first 100 miles at the time of this video. I've still got plenty of time to go on and plenty of practice to do. By no means super confident at the moment. But if I was to summarise kind of my experience so far, I would say that I really enjoyed learning the Veteran Sherman and just the EUC in general. Still enjoy using the one wheel. I think there's a place for both of them. And if you kind of have a similar experience or something, a different opinion, it'd be great to hear about it. Let me know in the comments.